Can we cook 5 pounds of wings on the Kamado Joe Jr.? I don't know, it's gonna be close. Let's find out. Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and today we're gonna see just how many chicken wings we can pack into our Kamado Joe Jr. And so the setup I'm gonna show you today, I'm gonna use the grate stacker accessory that's made by Smokeware. I've bought this accessory before for other small Kamados and loved it, and I've been putting it to good work inside my Kamado Joe Jr. But if you don't have one, you want to get started, I'm also going to show you a little hack on how you can modify your stock deflector plate and OEM grid system in order to create 2-zone cooking inside of your Joe Jr. It's one of the features I love most about my classic and Big Joe, and with a little creativity and a spare 10-inch grid, you can actually make a lot more fit inside your Joe Jr. So let me bring the camera a little closer. I'm going to show you the details on that setup, as well as get some heat into our Joe Jr. so we can get ready for today's cook. Okay, so I've already cleaned out the bottom of our Joe. Today I'm using some leftover charcoal, but if you have some fresh stuff, that'll work just fine. Now I want to show you the 2 different ways that we're going to set up for today's cook. Today I'm going to be using the Smokeware grate stacker, so let me show you what that looks like. And so how the grate stacker works is it just clips onto your stock grid. Now the disadvantage of this setup is that you have to cook essentially direct, because if you use the original heat deflector plate, it brings everything up a little bit too high and it just hits here when you close your temp gauge will hit the grid. But this works really well this way. And so the way that we'll do that is go ahead and drop this in. And this extra sort of 10-inch grid will give us enough capacity between our stock 13-inch grid and this 10-inch grid to fit our 5 pounds of wings. If you don't have the grate stacker, let me show you something that you can do for the cheap using your stock setup. So using your stock setup, just pretend this wasn't here. Go ahead and grab your deflector rack, and what you do is just drop it in upside down, just like so, on top of your grid. And then again, pretending that this piece wouldn't be here, get another 10-inch grid and drop that on. And if you're okay with having some bars in and around your food, you can effectively get a 2-tier cooking system inside your Joe Jr. with no issues in terms of the dome hitting. Now I like to get all the usable space instead of having to deal with these racks, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And after we get our coals lit, we'll drop this back in here and be able to load up our chicken wings. Let's start our fire. All right, let's fire it up. Okay, so now that we got a fire going inside of our Kamado Joe Jr., let me walk you through the game plan on how we want today's cook to go. So we're presented with a couple unique challenges. Since we don't have the protection of our heat deflector plate, nor do we have the ability to slide in a drip tray, we run the risk of 2 things. First, being too close to the hot fire so that we just end up burning our wings very, very quickly. Or 2, the very likely, as the wings start to cook and they render out the fats, that's just fuel for inferno mode, and it's going to encourage those flare-ups. So to help mitigate both those risks, the game plan for letting our Joe come up to temperature is to overshoot our target temperature significantly. If I was cooking these indirect, 400, 425 degrees on the Joe Jr. is a great temperature in Fahrenheit for wings on the Joe Jr. I'm already just past 500 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's okay, because what we're going to do is let the dome get really, really heat soaked and then significantly reduce our airflow top and bottom. Let that stabilize for about 10 minutes, and then when we throw on our wings, we're relying entirely on that infrared heat that's been retained in our ceramics to cook our wings evenly, top and bottom. If you're new to the channel, there's 3 heat sources that we can use in a Kamado. There's the conduction heat, which is our food touching a hot surface. And right now I have the grids out so that they're not scorching hot, so we're not really using that. The second is convection, so that hot airflow moving throughout the grill. And while we'll definitely have some hot air moving through the grill, that's not going to be continually fed by a fire. So we're really reducing that for today's cook. So we're not today's cook will not be a good one for adding smoking wood since we're going on a very heavily constrained fire. And the third and unique to Kamado cooking is the benefit of that infrared heat. It's a lot like in the summer, which is not today. I'm freezing, my hands are almost frozen. You walk outside and you get a sunburn if you stay in the sun too long. That's kind of what a heat-soaked dome does, is it's transferring that energy from the ceramics that have absorbed all that heat and passing it through to your meat and cooking it evenly all the way through. And so that's that third heat source that we're really gonna try and activate for today's cook. I'm gonna go inside, try and regain feeling in my fingers. Once I've done that, I'm just gonna season up our wings with my house rub. I'll put the details on the screen so you can see that, but it's mostly, salt, pepper. I add the salt separately, salt, pepper, garlic, onion, paprika, a little bit of cayenne. And if anything else I've missed, my ingredients on the side will help fill us in. And then I'll rejoin you outside in a couple minutes when it's time to throw these wings on our Joe Jr. All right, we got our wings all seasoned up. So I've just gone ahead and installed our cooking grates on the lower and second tier, as well as started to dial our vents way down. We're just gonna give that another minute or two to stabilize, just so those coals turn into glowing hot embers rather than a roaring inferno of a fire. And already I can see our gauge has started to drop back down now that it's not being kissed with those flames. So we're seeing about 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and I don't think we're gonna get much cooler than that. So we'll just give it another minute or two to stabilize, and then I'll bring the camera close and bring it fast forward while we load up our Joe Jr. with as many of these 5 pounds of wings that we can fit on there. Before we do though, I wanna know your guess. Are we gonna fit them all? Are we gonna come a little short? Let me know what you think. I've never tried a full 5 pounds before. This is a Costco pack. Very often they're just about 4.9 to 5.2 pounds. This one just came in over 5 pounds. So let me know in the comments below if you think they're gonna fit. We'll find out together in just a moment's time. All right, it's go time. Let's load up our Joe Jr. Take you fast forward and we'll see if we can fit them all in. Whew, so there is no social distancing going on inside our Joe Jr. We got them all in, so let's set a timer for about 20 minutes. We're gonna come back out and look for 2 things then, which is our internal temperature, as we should be getting fairly close, as well as the skin, and see if they need a flip. I'm okay going a little bit beyond the 165 degrees Fahrenheit safe temperature for chicken, as often you get a more tender wing, and I'd rather really great skin out of anything. And so if that means going to 175, 180, I'll take crispy skin with a really juicy, tender wing rather than 165 and a mushy skin. So we'll check back in about 20 minutes, see where we're at for our skin as well as our internal temperature. I'll see you then before I get smoked out. All right, our wings are up to temperature. So quick update, we're getting ready to sauce, but I am surprised. We lost some more temperature than I would have thought we would by just throwing on some cold chicken wings as well as installing our grate. So we did not end up maintaining that 400 degrees. We're right above 300 degrees. So that's a little cooler than I would have hoped. So I may have rushed in my excitement to get these wings on, and maybe a few more minutes at those high temperatures to further heat soak our ceramics would have been or will be what I do next time. Anyways, we're not throwing in the towel yet. We haven't even done our taste test. So let me bring the camera a little bit closer. We'll get our wings off into a bowl, sauce them up, throw them back on. Another 10 minutes, let that sauce tack up, and we'll do a taste test and find out where these wings fit in our top 10 wing cooks. All right, so full disclosure, you know how I said we weren't 300 degrees? Well, it turns out we packed our wings so tight, we're actually well beyond 300 degrees. And the minute that I removed them, our wings were acting like our heat deflector. So we lost about 6 wings in the center on the lower level. It was only, 5, 6. I'll go actually double count, make sure I'll put it in the comment below. But just wanted to highlight, we have a few soldiers down on this cook. And so I think the information I was seeing on the dome, I probably should have checked a little earlier. When I saw 300 degrees, I went ahead and just added another 15 minutes without flipping them. And I think that was my sort of fatal mistake here for those 6 wings. The rest of them though, however, look fantastic. So I don't know if that's coming through on camera. We've got nice crispy skin and everything looks perfect. So let's go ahead and get a bite and find out how these are before we cool off too much. I'm gonna start with the flat. Let's try a drum. Okay, so those are pretty good. Do they beat what we've done on the Classic or the Big Joe using one of my favorite methods, which is combining the rotisserie basket with a grill finish? No. But do these beat every wing that I've done on any other barbecue up until this last year or two? Absolutely. So these are still well in the top 10. And so this just goes to prove the versatility of the smallest Kamado Joe offering, the Joe Jr. Can turn out a stunning wing. And today, I think it was a little bit more user error for losing those 6 wings that we did burn. But hey, that happens. Who knew? I never tried to fit 5 pounds of wings on our Kamado Joe Jr. before. Anyways, that's it for today's video. I need to go back in and warm up and try and regain feeling in my fingers. If you like this video, please let YouTube know by smashing that like button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.